If you go into a store and ask to buy a rotating display for a 113-year-old tobacco box and baseball card, they likely may just call an ambulance, assuming you're having a stroke of some kind. But that's what I wanted. So like nearly everything else in my life, I had to do it myself. Here's how I did it, and how you can too. At the 2025 National Sports Card Show, I happened upon an antique tobacco box dealer. I was keen on a period-correct Recruit Little Cigars box, the kind that would have had a T207 brownback card in it. This box didn't have the card, but I had an extra 1912 T207 card, as one does. I reunited the two old friends and bought the box to bring home. Initially, I kept the card in the box and the box in a plastic container along with some padding to keep it from sliding around. This was a fine storage solution, but it isn't nice to look at, and it wasn't a long-term display solution. Going through a host of Google searches, I couldn't find anything close to a pre-made display that was even remotely appropriate or modifiable for my application, which meant I had to make it myself. I wanted it to be covered in either glass or acrylic for protection, and a glass dome was the one piece I knew I couldn't make myself. So to the interwebs I went and found no good solutions. I got close with a variety of glass cloche enclosures, the kind that they use for old clocks, but I just couldn't find the right size. One day I went to a craft store and came upon this, a glass storage canister with a sealing wooden lid. It was made by Nook & Company and cost $8. It measured 5 inches wide and 7 inches tall, just about the perfect size. Then came my light bulb moment. I turned it upside down. This will work. $8 later, I had a core on which to build. I wanted this display to rotate, but not all the time. I wanted something with a switch where I could turn the rotation on for special purposes, but something that would live most of its life not rotating. For this, I cruised through Amazon, and with a rotating display search was presented with hundreds of options. The glass was 5 inches in diameter, so I needed something very close to that number. I chose this model from YVV. It's just under 5 inches wide. It can rotate in either direction, it uses batteries, or it can be wired and powered with USB, and it was only $10. Done. 2 days later, I had a rotating base. That left me here, with a glass case, a rotating display, the box, and the card. The next thing I needed was a way to secure the tobacco box and card. I took some careful measurements of the base in the mini top loader and the tobacco box dimensions and fired up the design software, Fusion 360 in my case. The base needed to fit inside the glass. I gave it some depth and recessed a channel in which the card could sit while in its mini top loader. Then I raised a small base frame that could hold the tobacco box and sent it to my 3D printer. An hour later, I had this, which worked well. The box base was a little more snug than I wanted with such fragile cardboard, so a few tweaks were still needed. I went back in and eased the dimensions by 0.5 millimeter in length and width. I moved the card slot a bit off-center and added a recession on each side to hold some little cigars. I wanted this display to be special, so I visited a few cigar shops. I'm not a smoker and have never been, so my knowledge of smoking products is limited to 100-year-old baseball card boxes. One of the shops had a really helpful guy who helped me find these, well, little cigars. I photo matched them to a historical picture. They were the right size and just a touch long. For the first time in my life, I bought cigarettes. Well, little cigars, but you know what I mean. And I bought them from an active cigar lounge, so for the rest of the day I could smell the smoke on my skin, my hair, and my clothes. A small price to pay, I guess. Being a touch too long still, I took an X-Acto knife and cut them down to the correct length, and voila! Now, when I remove the glass, it will smell like tobacco, which, when not burning, is really quite a pleasant odor. And now I had all the pieces needed to design the base. I considered making the base out of wood, but the precision I can get with a 3D printer is superior, and I'll be able to share the design with everybody. Sketch first. The outer circle is the overall width. The first inner circle defines the width of the outer wall and corresponds to the width of the canister base. The inner circle is just a touch wider than the diameter of the rotating display. Bring up the outside wall, bring up the inside wall, enclose the bottom to a thickness of 2 millimeters, plenty thick for this application. Next, I rounded off the top to give it a taper to the glass. This is called a fillet for those who are curious. Then I added a fillet to the inside edge where the rotating base will sit. The rotating base has a control panel where you can plug in the power, and of course, it has the power switch too, so I need access to that. A few quick measurements, adding of course the thickness of the base plate, and I sketched a knockout. Then, cut it out. Add a fillet to the edge to make them look nice. Same thing to the bottom edge. I chose brown filament to hint at the color of tobacco, baseball gloves, dirt, bats, and so many other things around the game that are brown. I hit print, and a little over 2 hours later, I had this. To assemble, I put the rotating base into the enclosure and lined up the access port with the power panel. Next, the lid goes on. Upside down, of course. The display plate is next, with the box, card, and cigars carefully arranged. And finally, the glass goes over everything and seals against the gasket. It is more or less an airtight seal. I can enjoy it just like this, or cue the music. I'll include links to the glass canister and rotating display base in the description below. These aren't affiliate links or anything. They're just what I used. If you want the file to 3D print the base for yourself, send me an email. I'm happy to provide it. As long as you promise not to produce 25,000 of them in China and sell them for $75 each to my friends. It costs about $2 a filament to make it. If you want a custom display plate, send me an email and we can work together to make that for you too. All in, including the little cigars, this cost me about $25 to make. Even if this was something that was made, I can't imagine it being in a store at that price point. And I'll enjoy it for years as one of the centerpieces of my collection. Thanks for watching, and enjoy.